Hi, this is Scott with eTrailer. Today we're taking a look at and installing our Pacbrake suspension kit with Alpha HD airbags, air compressor, air tank, and wireless remote for our 2024 Ford F250. So taking a look at our Pacbrake kit we have on today on our F250, this is going to be a really good kit if you want to have something that you get and it's everything that you need to get a really good setup. This one's going to come with your airbags. It's going to come with all the line you need. It's going to come with your tank that's going to fill up with air. That's going to also help run your accessories to the rear that we'll show you in just a minute. It's going to come with your wireless Bluetooth manifold that runs by remote. That's going to be able to be changing your airbag pressures from the inside of your vehicle, so that's a really nice touch. It's also going to have your compressor, and it's a really good, solid, heavy-duty compressor that fills up everything real quick. So this is going to be a do-it-all kit that's going to have you set up and ready to set up your airbags, and you're really going to like this kit with the remote. So I was talking about the accessory kit that you get with this, and this is really cool. A lot of your other setups don't have this at all, and what this is going to do for you, it's going to come with an air line, so it's going to allow you to air up and air down your tires if you need to. Maybe your camper tires getting low once in a while and you need to, check them and air them up. You can do that with this. Another nice thing about it, it's going to have different ends and tips so you can fill up even basketballs or soccer balls and things like that with it. It's going to have like a blower nozzle that you can change tips on, so that's really nice. Also, it's going to come with your air chuck, so you can fill up your tires whenever you need. So it's just a nice little plus that you get with this kit, and I really like it with that little bit of an add-on that you get with it. With that, we'll pull it in the shop and we'll take a look at the rest of the kit. Now here's what it looks like with our whole kit installed. We have this set up on our passenger side frame rail. We have our air compressor here installed. We're going to have our remote controlled manifold right here in the center. And then we're going to have our tank set up right here. Now this is everything that's going to be installed when you install the full kit for your airbag setup. Now before we put our airbags on today, we did take it for a ride, and our neighbor had told us that he was pulling a heavy trailer and noticed that it was squatting quite a bit in the back. So we recommended an airbag kit for him. And now with this one, we got our airbags on, and I went and took it for a ride, and I could definitely tell the difference when we went over our bump course. You could feel it, that it was a lot more stable, and after I did some turns and kind of some sharp turns, you could feel that it felt more stable in the rear, and it got rid of a lot of the roll. Now another nice feature with these is you get a heavy trailer on there, you do a lot of heavy hauling with stuff in the back of your truck. What it's going to do for you is it's going to get your truck, bring it back up and level it out to more of its factory ride height, which is a lot of what the people want when they get these installed, is to just get that factory ride back when you're hauling heavy loads or pulling a trailer. Our onboard air kit we have on here today is a really good option for people that want to have the ability to check their tires and air up their tires on their truck, or anything you have hooked up to your truck. Maybe your camper gets a low tire or something like that, or your trailer, you got to get some air in them. It's a good option for that. Another nice thing about these is you can add things on, like your airbag setup. Like here today, we have it set up with a wireless controller, which controls our bags from the comfort of the inside of our vehicle. So it's really good for that. So if you get it set up like we have it set up today, it's a really solid permanent deal the way we have it. Your compressor's on really solid, and your tank, that isn't going anywhere at all. Now, one of the nice things about it is when your compressor runs on a lot of systems, you don't have instant air. Your compressor has to catch up with the system. But with this, you're going to have your compressor run, and it's going to fill this tank. So what that's going to do is this is going to hold pressure. So it's going to be like having air on demand. So when you have your accessories in the back, say you need your air line, you can plug right into that, and you're going to be using air that comes out of your tank instead of having to wait for your air compressor to catch up and get everything pressurized. And so we figured out this worked really well with our airbag setup that we have from Pacbrake, and that it instantly gives pressure to our bags, and we don't have to wait around for it to slowly come up. It just comes up really quick, and it gets us to where we want them. As soon as you bring it up on your remote for your remote setup, you can just see how quickly it goes up and gets to where you need it to be. Now with this setup, it's going to work with any type of airbags that you have. So with that, let's go ahead and take a look and see how it works. I'm going to show you the remote real quick. You can have 3 different settings on this one where you can set it up for different things that you want. And there's a couple different ways you can do this. This one is set up where you could do it where it's single paths, where it has both. They will equally air both sides, or you can push this little button and you can adjust your pressures separately. Say you have an uneven load in the back of your truck, you'll be able to change those to kind of even it out. So what I'm going to do is go back to the combined. As you can see, I have it set on 40 psi, so that's pretty good pressure in it. I'm going to go ahead and lower it down, and we'll see how much difference that makes when we drop a bunch of air pressure out of it. As you can see, it's lowering down quite a bit. Now that we got it dropped down, I'm going to go ahead and get some more air put back in my bags, and that's going to lift up the rear of our truck. With that, I got it reset to another 41 psi, and you can see that it is lifting it up quite a bit, and that's going to be really good for leveling out any loads that we have in the back of the truck or if we're pulling a trailer. With that being said, now we'll get underneath and we'll take a better look at our airbags and we'll show you how them look installed. So underneath of our truck, we can see what our Pacbrake airbag assemblies look like. Now they look pretty good, and what these are going to do, these are going to take the place of your factory bump stops that mount up top here, and these are going to have an internal jounce bumper in these, so you still retain that feature, but you get the feature of having your airbags. What these are going to do for you is, say you put a lot of heavy loads in the back of your truck all the time, these are going to help get you back to the factory ride height and help. It also helps with handling when you're going down the road. You don't have the back of your truck sagging down. This is really nice to help alleviate that. So a lot of people that are contractors that haul a lot of stuff in the back really like these because it helps get the handling back from their truck more to a factory style ride when they have a lot of things that are loaded in the back. One of the things I like about these is the hardware and everything that they have is for their brackets. These have almost like a hammer tone finish on them, and the brackets are all really thick, and it comes with everything you need to get it installed properly, and everything's really heavy duty compared to a lot of the other kits that we offer. And if it's my truck, this is probably the one that I would go with. So if you have any questions or comments about this setup for your F250, you can always leave any questions or comments down below in the comments section, or you can get a hold of one of our experts here at eTrailer. They'd be glad to help you out. As far as installation goes, it is pretty time consuming, but it's something you can handle yourself. If you don't have the time or the tools or the place to do it, you can always take a look at our dealer locator and get something done for you locally. If it's something you feel like tackling yourself, stick around, watch our video, and we'll help you get it installed. To start our installation, we went ahead and got our spare tire out of the way. It's going to give us a little more room, and it's also going to be easier for you guys to see. Now underneath of our vehicle on our driver's side, we're going to have our bump stop here. We're going to have the factory bump stops on each side we're going to need to get off. So these are going to be 2 15mm nuts. I'm just going to go ahead and get those backed out. Now we want to keep our nuts set aside. We can get our bump stop out of the way. We're just going to leave these studs and clips hanging out of our frame. Now we're going to have our bracket that's going to go up onto our frame where our bump stop was that we just removed. And in our kit, we're going to have these flat carriage style bolts, and they're going to have the squares. And as you can see here, you're going to have an indentation on your bracket. You just want to take that and push that down into that bracket. We're going to do that on both of these. Now that we've done that, we can take this and we'll put it up where our bump stop was. With our bolts that we have installed facing down, we're going to have these ears on the edge of our bracket We want to make sure that those ears are going to come up and touch our frame, and we're just going to slide that bracket up over our factory bolts. And we want these ears to be touching our frame. So now we'll just install the nuts that we removed from our bump stops. Hold that in place. And with that held, we can snug those down. Now we're over at our bench and we have our bag sitting here. And this one you're going to see we're going to have 3 holes in the top fit. You're going to have your air fitting hole and then your 2 bolt holes. Now there's a couple different ways you can do this. I've found either way works out really good. You can either put your roll plate on top and then put your fitting on, or you can just go ahead and put your fitting on, which I find is a little bit easier because you don't have your plate floating around up here when you're trying to tighten this down. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do it with it off, and I'm just going to get this run in finger tight, get it down as tight as I can get it, finger tight. Now I want to line up my fitting so I can use it as a reference. Now I want to go 1 full turn and then a half to tighten this down. Now keep in mind our fittings already have thread sealant on them, so we don't have to worry about putting any thread tape or anything like that on. Now that I've made 1 full turn, I'm going to go 1 half. And that'll be plenty tight. Now this will swivel. You can put this where you want it. Now I can take my plate and just run that over my fitting, set that on top of my bag. Now that I've done that, I'll take my other plate that's going to go up top, and you can see where it has a cutout. That's going to be the side where our fitting goes. Get that set in place. Now we're going to have the 2 bolts that are tapered, and you can see those don't have the square on those. We just want to start those in the top of our bag. Get those down, finger tight as far as we can. Now I'll come back through with my torque wrench and I'll get these torqued down to the specifications listed in our instruction manual. Now I'll come back through with my torque wrench and I have a 7/32 bit. And I'm just going to go ahead and get those torqued down. Here we have our lower bracket and then our bracket that goes over top of that. What we want to do is we're over here at our truck and we want to get this set in place, and we want to figure out which one of these holes is going to allow our plate to sit the lowest. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to put that right over top of where my bump stop hits. Now that I've done that, I can decide on our lowest location will be our first set of holes right there. So those are the ones we're going to go by. Now I can remove this and we'll get this set up on our thing. Now if you have any lines or anything that are in the way, you can always bend these just a little bit or move your bracket back, which I'll probably end up doing is just move this bracket back a little bit. Just give me a little more room for my bracket where it's not going to rub on our line. I'm just going to take some channel locks and I'm just going to bend this back just a little bit, being careful not to bend any of our lines. That's going to give me a little more clearance away from my bracket. We're back at our bench and I'm going to go ahead and flip my bag over. Now I don't want to set my bag down just on the table because I don't want to mess up my fitting. So I have a tape roll here and that's going to fit and protect my fitting from getting hurt. Now on the bottom side of our bag, we're going to have just the 2 holes, and just want to put our roll plate on. Now we'll take our plate that goes to the bottom part of our bag, and make sure you're looking at your orientation and keep an eye on your instructions and make sure you have everything lined up. So now I'll just get that in place. And in your kit, you're going to have these shorter silver bolts. I'm just going to take a split lock washer, a flat washer, and then I'm going to go ahead and thread that in loosely into both of these holes in the bottom of our bag. Leave them finger tight because you're going to want to be able to slide this around to make your final adjustments when we get it in place. And again, just finger tight. You want to be able to move this around. Now we can get our brackets put together, and in your kit you're going to have this gold colored grade 8 bolts. You just want to put a flat washer on that. And remembering which holes we figured out we're going to use, go ahead and run them through. From the inside out. Now also in your kit, you're going to have these nylock nuts, and these are going to have a little bit of black on the inside. Those are the ones I'm going to go ahead and put on all these. I'm just going to get these all started finger tight until they stop on the nylock. With that all together, now I can set my bag back on the bench. At this point, I'm going to come through and just snug everything down. After everything's snugged down, you want to come back through and torque down all of your hardware to the specifications listed in your instruction manual. Before we can get our bag assembly put in place, we want to make sure we torque down our factory nuts that hold our plate to our frame. As you can see at the back of our truck, we do have a jack kind of pushing up our suspension and lifting the body up. That's going to give us more room to where our bag's going to fit in place. Now, if you're doing this on the ground at home, you can use a floor jack or something like that. You just want to make yourself a little more room in there. It's going to make it a whole lot easier for you to get your bag in place. Another little trick we can do to help us out a little bit is we can squish our bag down, and I'm just going to use this piece of air line that's blocked off with another air fitting. And what I can do is push this down and then pop this in place, and it'll hold our bag compressed. This can be a little bit tricky to do. You want to get it pushed down as best you can. And push in your airline. That's going to hold our bag compressed. Now we need to get our bag put into position, and this part can be a little bit tricky. Are going to be some things in our way. Now to get my airbag assembly in place, because of this bracket right here and the way you have to get this lower bracket to kind of hook underneath where it has to mount, I did end up unbolting the bottom of my bag and just putting this part on separate. After I did that, I was able to finger start both of these bolts up underneath of my bag and get it put back in place. Now, as we can see here, we're not going to get full good contact against our U-bolts for our leaf springs. So what I'm going to do is in our kit, we're going to have these spacers. And what these are going to do is help us get closer to that. And it's also going to give us a better bite and keep the whole assembly from rocking back and forth. So on the front and back, I'm just going to put those in place, and then I'll come back in with my U-bolt. And then after I do that, I can start my nut. And as we're tightening these down, we can always hold this little spacer in place and then snug it down. With these sitting loosely in place, I'm going to take our long carriage bolts that come in our kit. I'm going to drop that through our bracket and make sure we get that seated. I'm going to do that front and back. With those seated in, I'll come back through with my bracket that goes underneath of our axle. And then I'll just start my nuts onto that. Now I'll take my upper back bracket and just run that up onto our bolts and just get the nuts started in place for those. With those in place, I'm going to go ahead and get some air going into my bag by pulling out our plug. What I want to do now is I'm going to snug up my U-bolt that goes around. I just want to get it started and hold my spacer plate. Once I have it kind of snug, I'll come around and do the other side, and I'll alternate back and forth until I have it snug down. Now I'll alternate back and forth with our carriage bolts and just snug them down until I make contact with the axle. Once we have these just snug down, we want to make sure our bag looks nice and straight and it's not tipped or anything like that. And ours looks pretty good, so what I'm going to do is just hold my bracket in place and just snug down my nuts in my upper bracket. Now we'll come back through and snug down our bolts underneath of our bag. And once we've done that, we'll come back through and torque down all of our hardware to the specifications listed in our instruction manual. To torque down all of your hardware, just kind of keep an eye on your torque specs in your manual. There are going to be different torque specs for these. And when I'm doing the U-bolt, what I like to do is alternate back and forth. I'll tighten a little bit on one side and then go back to the other side. That way we have even torque on both sides of our U-bolt. Now to torque down the bolts that are underneath of our bag, I am going to use a crow's foot, and it's really tricky to get up in there. You may have another way of doing this. Just make sure you bring them down to the proper torque. With the driver's side all done, you'll just repeat that process with a couple little changes on our passenger side. One of those changes are going to be is we're going to have this shield because our exhaust runs over on this side. And what this is going to do for us is it's going to keep our bag from getting all that direct heat that comes off of our exhaust. So what I want to do, you're going to have these two little tabs here. And what I'm going to do is just bend these out a little bit, each side. Go ahead and bend them out. You can do it by hand if you want to. And with that, I'm just going to make a little tab. It kind of bends over. What that's going to do is it's going to allow me to run my band clamp through the bottom of this. Now on my exhaust, we want to go just on the other side of where our bag is, and that's going to protect that from the heat. So now I'll just take my band clamps that came in our kit and we'll get them installed. Now the best way to do this is just get your clamps started after you have them put over your exhaust. And we'll get that done with both of these. And if you want to, you can even run them down a little bit. Once we do that, we can get our shield in place. And if you don't have it exactly where you need it while you're dealing with your band clamp, don't worry about that. You can always turn this however you want it after you get it just snug down. At this point, we can get our manifold figured out. You're going to want to find a good spot for it. And what I'm going to do is just go on our passenger side frame rail. And ours is going to have these brackets on here. And it's going to come with these U-bolts. And so what I want to do is just get that up on the frame. Kind of pick a place where I want that to go. And I'm going to end up going right there with it. All I'm going to do is just run both of my U-bolts through the back of the frame. Put them up there. Now I can move them around where I need them to be. Now I'll just take my manifold and line up my lower holes in my bracket. And with that, I'll take the supplied nuts and just get those started on all four. After we have all of our hardware in place, we'll just get everything snugged down. Now you can see here I have a bolt sticking out of my frame that we fish wired in and through. And over here, I'm going to end up putting another hole in through here and get this drilled out. What I'm going to do is take a drill bit, a smaller one, and I'm just going to work my way up in sizes until I get it out to the size I need. So I'm going to go ahead and start drilling those holes out now. Now what I'm going to do is I'll show you how we did the little fish wire technique. We want to take our fish wire that we have. I'm going to run it in from our hole down to our access hole we have here. Once we have that through, we'll put our spacer block up onto our coil. Then we'll take our carriage bolt and we'll just get that threaded on to the end of our fish wire. Now keep in mind these parts won't come in your kit, so you may need to acquire these if you go this route that we're going with this one. Pull that up through and pull that through our mounting hole. We went ahead and got our tank all set up, and on the bottom of our tank we have our pressure release valve, and if the tank ever gets too overfull or something, this will blow off and let air out so it safely holds enough pressure. And you can also pull this release if you ever wanted to let some air out of it. Now up top we have our fittings installed as well. We have our fitting that goes into the top of the tank. Now keep in mind all of the fittings that we have put on, we went ahead and used some thread tape, and they recommend doing that on all of these. That way you don't get any small leaks or anything after you get it all assembled. So we went did that, and we got that mounted down into our tank, and then it comes with a cross-section type fitting. I went ahead and mounted that to the top of that. Over here on the side, we're going to have our pressure switch. We went ahead and got that installed. Now we are going to have to wire that up after we get everything mounted. This fitting we have up top is going to be a swivel fitting, and that's a quick connect. So that is going to be our air inlet. That's where our air from our compressor is going to come in. And I can move this wherever I need this to go after I have it installed. We're going to have our air outlet here. We're going to have two of those. We're going to have one for our accessory, which will go to our manifold for our airbags. And then the other, we're going to set it up where it runs out for our onboard air, and be able to air up your tires and plug in your air line to that and use that for accessory air. Here you'll see we have our compressor that comes with our onboard air kit, and the fitting down here was already installed. So that one is going to be for our air inlet, and this will hook up to the little air filter that comes in our kit. Now this up here we did install, and as you can see we also added our thread tape on that as well, and this is going to be our one-way check valve, and this is going to allow air to come out but not back into our compressor. So we got that installed, and then we went ahead and installed our straight fitting onto that. This is going to be a quick connect. This is going to supply air from our compressor to the inlet of our tank. With everything installed on my tank, I'm just going to get my tank put up into position, used my fish wires to run through my mounting holes of my tank. We got our tank put in place, and it was really tricky to get the nuts started on the back of this, but now I'm just going to go ahead and get these tightened down. It's going to give us a good solid mount for our tank. Now for our air compressor, we're going to keep this in the general vicinity of where we have everything else mounted so far. So what I decided is we're going to go right here with it, and that way we're going to have close access to all of our accessories. So with that, I went ahead and marked out my holes where I'm going to end up having that mounted. So what I'm going to use is self-tappers to run these in. So what I'm going to do is come back through with a smaller drill bit and just get those started so it's easier to run my self-tappers in. After we have all of our holes drilled out, what we're going to do now is we're going to go ahead and get them started with our self-tapping screws. So take your time running these on. Since we have everything in place, now is time we can start getting things hooked up. And however you have yours set up, the way ours is we're going to have our manifold here, we have our compressor in place and our tank. So I just want to plug in my wiring harness onto my manifold and just get that pushed on, and we'll push down on our yellow lock, and that's going to lock that into place. we're going to have our wiring harness that comes off of that as well. Just want to line up our lock sides, and we'll get that pushed into place. Now we can just go ahead and get our wiring harness ran up underneath of our hood where we'll get power. In our kit, we're also going to have this blue line. This is going to be for our air intake. So what we're going to do is just find a good place for this where it's not going to get a bunch of water on it all the time, not a lot of dust. So I'll find a good spot for that. We just went ahead and threaded on our fitting, and that's going to run right to the bottom of our air compressor, and that will be our clean air. And so what I'll do is I'll just get that all routed and put up, and we'll show you where we got that tucked away. And we put our little air filter right up here. There was a pre-existing hole, and I was able to just push that in, and it popped in place, and it's holding it really well. Go ahead down and ran our line, and I attached that to the top of where my running boards come up for the mount, tied off to that. Came across with our line, went up over just behind our manifold, and then came down, tied off right here to where our compressor is, and then went over, and right here, as you can see, we're going to have our quick disconnect fitting. And with that, all we have to do is just push that in place, and I can show you how we made our cut. Just push that in till it stops. Now I have some line here. I can show you how we made our cut. Your kit's going to come with this line cutter, and this is going to give you a good squared off edge and a clean cut. It's recommended to use this throughout your installation on all of your lines. What it's going to do for you is keep your line from crushing or crimping, and this is going to give you really clean cut. Just put it in there, and you'll bring down the blade, give it a, and you can see there it's really clean, nice cut, and that's going to help prevent leaks as you're doing your installation. We're going through setting up all of our air lines now, and I'm going to show you how we got that all set up on our airbags. But first I wanted to show you how we have it set up on the rear. This is going to be a dual path, so we're going to have two separate fittings here on the back. One's going to be for our driver's side, one's going to be for our passenger side. That way if you have any uneven loads in the back, you can adjust your bags that way, and you can also do that through your remote. But with this setup, instead of drilling through the bumper, our neighbor really isn't going to use these a whole lot because he has the compressor set up. So just wanted to get this set up without drilling a bunch of holes in his bumper. So we have this bracket, and it's basically one that we have here at eTrailer. It's going to be a Firestone part, and it just basically goes around your hitch and allows you to mount both of your fittings here on the back. That way you don't have to put a bunch of holes in your bumper or anything like that. And it actually turns out to be a really nice, clean look. So where we routed our line is we're going to have our dual path here, and the one we have over on our driver's side went up, routed it up over our frame, keeping in mind we are going to have our spare tire right in this area. Went up and over and started tying off to our factory wiring harness that comes down, and we want to keep it away from our shock or any moving parts or any exhaust or anything like that. So we just followed our factory harness down and tied off really nice back in here so it's nice and stable. It's not going to pop out and touch our shock because that moves. Then we ended up coming up, following our harness, come over, made a nice clean cut, and then attached right here to the fitting in the top of our bag. I went ahead and unplugged it from our bag to show you when you do your pressure check and then you check for leaks and you spray your soapy water on these, if you have any bubbles or anything like that, you can push in on the little collar that is on your fitting. You just hold that in and then pull out on your line. Now, best thing to do is just cut a little piece at the end of your line off, get another clean cut, and most of the time that's going to fix your problem. Then you'll just go ahead and just plug it back in. Push it in till you feel it stop. It'll almost feel like a little click, and you know you have a good connection. With our passenger side line, we just ran it up and over and then down the frame, again, away from any of our exhausts or moving parts, and then went over and then mounted it to our bag the same way we did our driver's side. What I'll show you now is how we have all our lines set up here at our compressor, our air tank, and our manifold. So what I did is we have our air intake for our compressor already lined up and set up. We showed you that with our air inlet. Now we have our one-way check valve on our compressor, and this line will run out, over, and up to our tank, and that is, we put that in, and then we tighten this down on this brass fitting right here, and that's going to give that a good solid fit, and that will be our air to our tank. As you can see here, we have our line running in to the top of our tank. Now on top of our tank, you're going to see this blue line, and from there we went over to the top of our manifold, and both of those are just push-in fittings, so that was really easy to get that set up. Now after we did that, we do have an accessory line that came out of the back of our tank over here on this other side, and you can see the line that goes up and runs all the way to the back. That will be to our accessory fitting we have on the rear that will run our plug-in air line that will allow us to air up tires or other things that run off air like small air tools. After we got our air coming into our manifold, now we have our two fittings down on the bottom. Our fitting on the left is going to be for our left side, and that will be our driver's side. Our fitting on the right will be our right side, and that is the passenger side. With these, we just did these one at a time. To eliminate confusion, I recommend just running the one all the way back towards your bag that you're working with. Get that one all set up, and then come back through, and then do the next one and just follow it back. And it makes things a lot easier because your lines are going to look the same when you run them back there. That way you don't get them confused and mix them up. What I did is ended up running our line up and then jumped up on top of the frame. And then on the back side of the frame here, I ended up coming up and just going up over my cross members. Again, staying away from any hot exhaust or any moving parts, and then just tie off as you go until you get it run back to where you're going to have your T. As you can see here, we have our T, and what this is going to do is allow us to run our manifold lines to this, and that's how we'll get our wireless air pressure changes to our bags. With that, we're just going to follow our same procedures of just cutting into our line, and then we'll insert our T, and then we can just go ahead and pop in our third one here, and this is the one that I have set up, and it's going to run to the back of our vehicle and give us our manual fill. As far as our wiring goes, we have it all set up here, and you can see right here I'm going to have my ground. I have two black wires running into that for my ground. One of them is going to be for my compressor here. The other one's going to be for my pressure switch over on my tank. So what I have here is I'm going to have my red wire that comes off of my compressor. You can see that that comes out, and that's going to run up to my relay. Now the black wire that comes from our relay harness, we have one of those hooked to these blue wires. Both of these are going to do the same thing, so you can hook one of them to your relay wire, and then the other one is one I jumped over and ran over to my ground on my frame. Now here we have where we ran our wires up to the front. What I have is I have my manifold wiring harness, and then I went ahead and ran my relay wiring harness up with that as well. So all I did is just run them up and over my frame, coming along and tying off in a few different spots. There isn't a whole lot of places that you can really tie off. So as you are tying off, you want to kind of pull it tight so it doesn't hang down. So we came up over, went behind our body mount here, and then we ended up going behind a bracket and then up into our hood with both of our sets of wiring harnesses. Now we're going to have our harnesses up here underneath of the hood. We're going to see that we have our relay. That's already going to have our power that's going to go to our positive terminal of our battery. We have our fuse connector already connected there. Our white wire coming out of our terminal is going to end up going into our fuse box, and it will go to a fused wire tap inside of there. So whenever you turn the key on, that will activate the system. And now we have our harness here, and this is the one that will come off our compressor. We're going to have our black wire, which will be our ground. We'll go to our negative terminal on our battery. We'll have our red, which will go to the positive terminal on our battery. And then we have our yellow, which will also go to a fused circuit in our box. So now I'm just going to go ahead and strip off all my wires, get those stripped back. Now keep in mind, I did shorten up our harness. Our harness is really long, so you're going to want to have to cut that back a little bit, or you could just roll it up somewhere and tuck that away. So in our kit, we're going to have our fuse holder that will go to our harness for our compressor. And I'm going to use a heat shrink butt connector on that. I'm just going to get that crimped into place. Now on the other end, I'm going to install my fuse holder. Just get that crimped down. Now for my black wire, all we're going to install there is a ring terminal. In your kit, you're going to have some larger ones. I'm going to need a little bit smaller for ours, so I did have a smaller blue ring terminal that I'm going to use for this. And with that, we'll just get that crimped into place. Now I'll just take my heat gun and I'm going to heat up my heat shrink butt connector, and that's going to get everything sealed up and give us a good waterproof, corrosion resistant fit. What we're looking for when we do this is we're looking for this to get most of our bubbles out and get it to seal up around our line. And once we start getting a little gel coming out of the end, that's how we'll know we have a good seal. Underneath of our hood here, for our battery connections, we went ahead and got our positive wire connected, both of them. We have the one that comes off of our relay. We have that one hooked up to our positive terminal, and also the one that comes out of our main harness for our manifold. We've got that hooked up. Went ahead and hooked up our negative wire, which is our black wire, over to our negative terminal. Now the yellow wire that comes out of our harness for our manifold, we went ahead and got that hooked up. Over here in our fuse box is where we hooked up our fuse tap, and we did that with two of them. One of them is coming from our manifold, and the other one will come from our compressor wiring. So that will come off of our relay. So we got those all hooked up, and now we can get our cover put back on here. With all of our power hooked up and everything's wired together, we're going to go ahead and give it a test and make sure everything works. Go ahead and turn our ignition on. Hold on our button, turn on our remote. Now we're going to have our remote start coming on. Going to go ahead and agree. Hit connect device. Our device is connected. Now we'll hit 1. Going to go ahead and bring them both up to pressure, and then we can check our lines and make sure we have no leaks. After we've got air in all of our bags and our lines and everything are pressurized, we went back through and sprayed down all of our fittings with soapy water, and use a little bit of dish soap and some water. Just make sure, just go ahead and spray them all, and you're looking for any big bubbles or anything like that. Just make sure all those are good to go, and once you have all that set up, your airbags, you can go ahead and spray around them too, just to be sure. Just make sure everything's leak-free. After you've checked for leaks, you can get your accessory kit all set up. You can get your ends on that you want. You're going to have a few different things in here. After that, you can put it all in your bag that comes with your kit. After that, that'll do it for our installation of our Pacbrake air suspension kit on our 2024 Ford F250. I'm Scott with eTrailer, and thanks for watching.